In the heart of the Italian peninsula, along the banks of the winding Tiber River, stood a city that would one day command the known world. Rome began not as the marble-clad capital of emperors that we might imagine, but as a collection of humble settlements perched on 7 hills, founded according to legend in 753 BCE by twin brothers raised by wolves. Yet from these modest beginnings would emerge the most powerful and enduring empire in human history, one whose influence still echoes through our modern institutions, languages, and laws. The story of Rome's transformation from a small city-state to a vast empire spanning 3 continents is fundamentally the story of how a republic died and gave birth to an empire. It is a tale of ambition and betrayal, of military genius and political cunning, of traditions honored and traditions shattered. Most remarkably, it is the story of how a system designed to prevent any one man from gaining too much power ultimately produced some of history's most absolute rulers. The Roman Republic emerged in the late 6th century BCE, born from the Romans' bitter rejection of monarchy after they expelled their last king, Tarquin the Proud, in 509 BCE. The founders of the Republic were determined that never again would one man hold absolute power over Rome. They created an intricate system of checks and balances, where power was shared among multiple magistrates, where terms of office were limited, and where the wealthy patrician class was gradually forced to share authority with the common plebeians. At the heart of this system stood the consulship, Rome's highest office. 2 consuls were elected each year, each possessing the power to veto the other's decisions. This principle of collegiality meant that no single individual could make unilateral decisions for the Roman state. Below the consuls were praetors who administered justice, quaestors who managed finances, and aediles who oversaw public works and festivals. The Senate, composed of former magistrates, served as an advisory body whose collective wisdom guided Roman policy. This republican system proved remarkably effective at channeling Roman energies outward toward conquest and expansion. The Romans possessed an almost unique ability to absorb other peoples into their system, granting citizenship to allies and former enemies alike. Unlike other ancient empires that ruled through fear and exploitation, Rome offered a path to inclusion. A Gallic chieftain's son could become a Roman senator. A Spanish farmer could join the legions and retire with land and citizenship. This flexibility became Rome's greatest strength, allowing it to grow not just through conquest but through assimilation. The engine of Roman expansion was the legion, perhaps the most effective military organization the ancient world had ever seen. Unlike the citizen soldiers of other city-states who fought briefly before returning to their farms, Roman legionaries were increasingly professional warriors, equipped with standardized gear and trained in sophisticated tactics. The manipular system allowed for flexibility on the battlefield, while Roman engineering created roads, fortifications, and siege equipment that gave them decisive advantages over their enemies. Yet success bred its own problems. As Rome's territories expanded beyond Italy to encompass Sicily, Spain, and eventually the Eastern Mediterranean, the traditional republican system began to strain under the weight of empire. Generals who spent years campaigning in distant lands developed personal loyalties with their troops that transcended their obligations to the state. Wealth flowed into Rome from conquered territories, creating vast disparities between rich and poor that the republican system seemed unable to address. The first cracks appeared in the 2nd century BCE with the reforms of the Gracchus brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, who attempted to redistribute land to Rome's growing population of landless citizens. Their violent deaths at the hands of conservative senators marked the beginning of the end for the Roman Republic, establishing a precedent for political violence that would plague Rome for the next century. The crisis deepened with the rise of military strongmen who commanded the personal loyalty of their legions. Marius reformed the army, creating professional soldiers who served for decades and looked to their commanders rather than the state for rewards and retirement benefits. His rival Sulla demonstrated that Roman armies could be turned against Rome itself, marching on the city and proscribing his political enemies. The precedent was set. In the late Republic, political power flowed from the loyalty of armed men. Into this volatile world stepped 3 men whose alliance would reshape the Roman world: Pompey the Great, Marcus Licinius Crassus, and Gaius Julius Caesar. Their informal agreement in 60 BCE, known to historians as the First Triumvirate, represented a new form of Roman politics where personal relationships and backroom deals mattered more than constitutional procedure. Pompey brought military prestige from his victories over pirates, and in the East, Crassus provided vast wealth accumulated from property speculation and slave trading. while Caesar offered political cunning and desperate ambition. Caesar's proconsulship in Gaul from 58 to 50 BCE transformed him from a debt-ridden politician into one of Rome's greatest military commanders. His conquest of Gaul brought immense wealth and glory to Rome, but also created a military force personally loyal to Caesar rather than the Roman state. When the Senate, led by Cato the Younger and supported by Pompey, demanded that Caesar return to Rome as a private citizen to face prosecution, they forced a choice that would destroy the Republic. Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon River in 49 BCE with his legions was not just an act of rebellion, but a fundamental violation of the Roman constitutional order. The civil war that followed pitted not just Caesar against Pompey, but two visions of Rome's future against each other. Pompey represented the traditional aristocratic republic, while Caesar embodied the new reality of personal military power. Caesar's victory at Pharsalus in 48 BCE effectively ended the republic, though few realized it at the time. As dictator, Caesar implemented sweeping reforms that addressed many of Rome's pressing problems. He extended citizenship to people throughout the Roman territories, reformed the calendar, undertook massive public works projects, and began the process of integrating the provinces into a coherent administrative system. Yet his accumulation of honors and titles, including the unprecedented appointment as dictator for life, convinced many senators that he intended to become king, the ultimate violation of Roman Republican values. The assassination of Caesar on the Ides of March 44 BCE represented the last gasp of the Old Republic. The conspirators, led by Marcus Brutus and Gaius Cassius, believed they could restore the traditional system by eliminating the tyrant. Instead, they unleashed another round of civil wars that would finally destroy what remained of Republican government. Caesar's heir Octavian, his loyal general Mark Antony, and the pragmatic Lepidus formed the Second Triumvirate, legally sanctioned this time, and systematically eliminated their enemies in bloody proscriptions that made Sulla's earlier purges seem restrained. The final act of the Republic's death throes played out across the Mediterranean as Octavian and Antony, after disposing of their enemies, turned on each other. Antony's alliance with Cleopatra of Egypt provided Octavian with the perfect propaganda opportunity, allowing him to portray the conflict not as another Roman civil war, but as a patriotic struggle against foreign influence. The naval battle of Actium in 31 BCE gave Octavian control of the Roman world, but more importantly, it gave him the opportunity to reshape Roman government entirely. Octavian's genius lay not in overthrowing the Republic, but in appearing to restore it while fundamentally transforming its nature. Taking the name Augustus in 27 BCE, he claimed to have returned power to the Senate and people of Rome while carefully maintaining control over the provinces, the army, and the essential functions of government. This settlement, known as the Principate, preserved the forms and ceremonies of the Republic while creating what was effectively a monarchy disguised as a restoration. Augustus ruled for over 4 decades, establishing precedents and institutions that would endure for centuries. He created the Praetorian Guard as his personal military force, established a professional civil service, and began the process of codifying Roman law. Under his rule, Rome entered what would later be called the Pax Romana, a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity that would last for nearly 2 centuries. The transformation of Rome from republic to empire reflected broader changes in the ancient world. The small city-state system that had dominated the Mediterranean was giving way to vast territorial empires that required new forms of organization and control. Rome's success lay in its ability to adapt its institutions to meet these new challenges, while maintaining the loyalty and identity that had made it great. The legacy of this transformation extends far beyond ancient history. The tension between republican ideals and imperial necessities that destroyed the Roman Republic has echoed through subsequent centuries. From the fall of the Weimar Republic to modern debates about executive power in democratic societies. The Roman experience suggests that republics are fragile institutions that require constant vigilance and renewal to survive the pressures of success and expansion. Moreover, the Roman model of empire, with its emphasis on inclusion and assimilation rather than exploitation and exclusion, provided a template that would be emulated and adapted by subsequent imperial powers. The idea that conquered peoples could become equal citizens of a universal state was revolutionary in the ancient world and remains influential in modern concepts of citizenship and nationality. The rise of Rome from republic to empire also demonstrates how military innovation and organization can reshape political systems. The The Roman legion was not just a military formation, but a social institution that created bonds of loyalty and identity that transcended traditional civic obligations. When these military loyalties came into conflict with civilian authority, the result was the militarization of politics that characterized the late Republic and early Empire. Perhaps most significantly, the Roman experience shows how success can contain the seeds of its own transformation. The very qualities that made the Republic successful in its early centuries, its flexibility, its ability to incorporate new peoples and ideas, its military effectiveness, ultimately created pressures that the traditional system could not contain. The empire that emerged was not a betrayal of Roman values, but their logical evolution under changed circumstances. The story of Rome's transformation reminds us that political systems are not eternal or inevitable, but are constantly shaped by the interplay of tradition and innovation, of internal dynamics and external pressures. The Roman Republic died not because it was weak, but because it was too successful, expanding beyond the limits that its institutions could manage while creating new centers of power that challenged traditional authority. As we face our own challenges of maintaining democratic institutions in an interconnected and rapidly changing world, the Roman experience offers both warnings and insights. It reminds us that republics require more than good institutions to survive. They require citizens committed to placing the common good above personal ambition and leaders willing to respect the limits that prevent any individual from accumulating too much power. The transformation of Rome from a small Italian city-state to the master of the Mediterranean world represents one of history's most remarkable political and military achievements. Yet it also serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of republican institutions and the ease with which they can be transformed into something entirely different while maintaining the appearance of continuity. In the end, the rise of Rome teaches us that the price of freedom, as the Romans themselves learned too late, is eternal vigilance against the concentration of power in the hands of the few, no matter how capable or well-intentioned they may appear to be. The echoes of Rome's transformation from republic to empire continue to resonate through the corridors of power today. From the marble halls of modern democracies to the grand boulevards of contemporary capitals, we can still see the architectural and institutional DNA of Augustus's political revolution. The very words we use to describe our governments, Senate, Republic, Citizen, Constitution, carry within them the weight of Roman experience and the memory of Roman struggles. Perhaps most remarkably, Rome's story reminds us that history is not inevitable, that the institutions we take for granted are not permanent fixtures, but living, breathing systems that require constant care and renewal. The Roman Republic lasted nearly 5 centuries, longer than any modern democracy, yet it ultimately fell not to foreign invasion or natural disaster, but to the accumulated weight of its own success and the ambitions of individuals who place personal power above the common good. As we face our own democratic challenges in an age of global uncertainty, the Roman example offers both hope and warning. Hope, because it shows us that human societies are capable of creating systems of remarkable durability and adaptability. Warning, because it demonstrates how quickly even the most established institutions can be transformed when citizens lose faith in their democratic values and turn instead to strongmen who promise simple solutions to complex problems. The rise of Rome from republic to empire stands as one of history's most compelling narratives, a story of triumph and tragedy, of human achievement and human folly, of the eternal struggle between the ideals of freedom and the realities of power. In studying Rome's transformation, we study not just the past but ourselves, and perhaps find in those ancient struggles the wisdom we need to preserve the democratic institutions that remain our best hope for human flourishing. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most pivotal transformations. The story of Rome's rise from a small Italian city to a world empire that would endure for over 1,000 years is a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and the complex interplay between idealism and pragmatism that shapes all political systems. If you found this exploration of Rome's transformation from republic to empire as fascinating as we did, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What parallels do you see between ancient Roman politics and our modern democratic challenges? Which Roman figure do you think had the greatest impact on this transformation? Do you believe the fall of the Roman Republic was inevitable, or could different choices have preserved the democratic system that had served Rome so well for centuries? Don't forget to subscribe to HR History and hit that notification bell to stay updated with our latest historical documentaries. We're constantly exploring the pivotal moments that shaped our world, from ancient civilizations to modern revolutions, always seeking to understand how the past informs our present and guides our future.